Can everyone hear me? I can be super loud, so just let me know. I'm about to give you a detailed retelling of the War of Spanish Succession. That would be terrible, although I make a great Queen Anne. Okay, we're gonna get started. I want to just start by thanking everyone in the Alcyon community, Mr. Morris and Mr. Go, all of the community members that are here today, parents, family, friends, for the honor of speaking today, and of course, to our graduates, the class of 2019. There's nothing I like to do more than anything. The thing I love to do more than anything is give unsolicited advice. And technically this is solicited advice because I was asked to speak, so that's even better. And if you're hoping or wanting to know my perspective on Game of Thrones, which recently wrapped up, I'm sorry. As my students know, I'm actually only up to season 3. I started a late bloomer. So there's no spoilers allowed. I'm like trying to insulate myself. It's been very difficult. Okay. So before I really jump into what I want to say today, I really want to thank the graduates for choosing me to speak on their behalf. And on behalf of so many wonderful people, so many of the great teachers and professors that they've had, each of whom has influenced this place that we inhabit in so many significant ways. I also must thank the parents, grandparents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, I saw a small dog, and friends who are assembled here today and who, each in their own way, have contributed to the success of our graduates. I really just want to comment on how remarkable this opportunity is at Alcyon. Alcyon students are the best and the brightest. They're the students I love to teach the most, don't tell my other students. I look forward to having them in class. It really, I keep coming back to this phrase in Latin. I don't know if any Latin speakers in the house. Okay, which is scere desidero, which means the desire to know, and that's something that I really think encompasses and encapsulates a lot of what the Alcyon students bring. They're precocious, they're adventurous, they're really just amazing. They're the best and the brightest. I really feel lucky to get to work with them, to have worked with this wonderful group of graduates who I'll get to speak a little bit about today, and hopefully to work with some of you in the future. I see you. Okay, so we can start working now. Okay, so let's get started with the show. In her 1979 collection of essays, The White Album, Joan Didion famously reflects on the importance of place, community, and identity, the human power to construct or reconstruct our own environment through myriad forms of capital. Community, she notes, belongs forever to whomever claims it hardest, remembers it most obsessively, wrenches it from itself, shapes it, renders it, loves it so radically that he remakes it in his own image. I start today with Didion's words because they capture the feelings that really have been swirling for me in these last heady days of the semester, and certainly for our graduates in the class of 2019. She speaks to a quality that is so intrinsic in this group of young people who sit in front of us today, evident from their first shaky days as high school students to this very moment, ready to step out into this wonderful, wild world that we live in. Last Thursday evening, at the Ohlone College Awards ceremony, I was really kind of struck. I was really honored to see all of these amazing students honored, including one of our graduates today, who won the Political Science Award for the entire college, which is a really remarkable achievement. Not going to name names. I may be looking at that person, right? Okay, anyway. No embarrassment. Okay. And I really saw the fruition of this quality, how community shapes each of us as individuals, and how you in turn as individuals help to build this community, to help shape the world around us. No group of people has made so many individual strides, puts more of this into place, to shape place and community than young people, out of hopes for its future, out of a genuine appreciation of its past, out of a desire for social justice to triumph in the face of unflattering odds, and out of a love for who we are as a people. I also start with Didion because it was the wise voice in her prose that inspired me to think about place as a thinker teacher, and writer. As an undergraduate at UC Berkeley, I was introduced to Didion for the first time by a history professor named Kerwin Klein. In Dr. Klein's California history course, we read works that ran the gambit from Native American hermeneutics to critiques of film noir. But it was Didion that struck me the most. Not literally, Didion did not assault me, I just want to be clear. She's a powerful woman with her words. I think I could take her in a fight. I see she's very old. Okay, so maybe not. She probably has some pretty good moves. This was not the best choice of words. I pull back now. But she really struck me in the sense of the relationship that I was developing with the world around me, with this academic environment that surrounded me, and where I wanted to be in the world. Indeed, it was Didion's perspective on people, place, and power that became my guide in graduate school and through my career as a historian, a touchstone and a compass, really, for me to guide me to how I thought, how I wrote, how I engaged with my students. I was thinking a lot about Joan Didion in the fall of 2016, when I began my work as a professor at Ohlone College. Having taught at the college level for a number of years, and before that, I spent a decade actually as a high school teacher and administrator. This was not, as Joan Crawford might say, my first time at the rodeo. It was different though. I was drawn to the Ohlone community because of its sense of self, its sense of place, qualities that have not been dulled, even in the midst of a seemingly endless construction project. And if you are one of my students, you know my many jokes about the construction project, which I thought would be done by this point. I charged myself that fall to be a student again, to learn from this new place and the people in it. And then I walked into a classroom, FP30. It's one of the temporary portable rooms that we have in the construction, and I met the 4 young scholars that you see before you. FP30 is, in the most charitable sense, not the best classroom on campus. Even the most generous description of the space would include words such as strange, odd, or the phrase out of place. Why, for example, is there a photocopier in the middle of the room? Never could answer this. Never mind, right? This semester that I was learning what it meant to be part of the Ohlone community, I was also learning from this excellent group of young people in my modern world history course. I love teaching world history more than anything else, because it captures this feeling of exploration, of experiences that are so often distant from our own, that they inspire us to reconsider our own values, our own way of seeing the world, our own life, our worldview. Well, I've taught this course many, many, many times. Never have I had such a precocious, engaged, and intelligent group of students. They asked hard questions and then tried to answer them. They wanted to know more, and they challenged each other and themselves to be the best. In sum, this group is among the finest group of students that I've taught in my 20 plus years. I hate saying that because I feel like it ages me. My many years of teaching, a long time, long enough. It is for them and the community that they built in this maze of classrooms and a torpor of assignments that I present a charge. My charge to the Alcyon graduates of the class of 2019 is to heed Didion's words and to use your passion and heart to create community in the next steps you take out of this place and into the rest of your lives. To reach out to your neighbors, your partners, and to the world around you and express love, intellect, moral courage, and truth. Love the place you find yourself in and the people you share that place with. So much that, like this place, like this community, that place will be shaped by you. I want to speak to 3 essential qualities that I think are essential to building community: integrity, empathy, and memory. I want to talk about these values because when I reflect on my time with you, these are the things that I hope I've imparted to you in my classes, in my conversations, the occasional gossip sesh. These are the things that you've also taught me since my first day here. The first quality I want to speak about is integrity. For me, integrity encapsulates a lot of acts and feelings ranging from the recognition and vigorous defense of one's own beliefs to a profound loyalty to one's community and, for some, to the world around them. If you learned anything from your history courses or from your history as a human being, it is that integrity is both variable and a variable. In speaking with the Ohlone faculty about the speech today, I talked to a lot of them about this, I was reminded that integrity has lots of meanings and actually shares something with the word integral, right? And that's actually how I think about integrity. It's something that has to be part of who we are, to be our best selves, always to be our best selves. And I really couldn't agree more with that idea. In my time with you, I've seen many of you struggle not simply with questions of right and wrong, of truth and fiction, or alternative facts. As a historian, loved that. I was like, ooh, can't wait to talk about that. But also figuring out what it means to be true to oneself in a community that sometimes pressures you to conform. My proudest moments have been when you've stood up for what's right, defended each other, and expressed what you believe, even when you know that might cause you some harm or distress. I only wish we could be a better model, as a larger world, a better model of such behavior for you. For we live in a world where personal and communal integrity are challenged and tested often. It is this testing that you will learn to take risks, to assert yourself, and hopefully defend those around you. Continuing this theme a little bit, the second quality I want to talk about is empathy. Empathy, as you know, is the ability to understand and see the perspective of others. It is, to use that tired cliche, to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Not that you should be wearing other people's shoes. I feel like this is some good life advice you probably already know, but something to take with you to college. Why is empathy so important? Why does it matter? Because it allows you to understand why people make the choices that they do. Alcyon, and Ohlone for that matter, as many of you discovered, is a pretty insulated place. Here, in these walls, I suppose you can forget, if you try really hard, the fighting that's ripping our planet apart, the struggle against people's civil rights, and the fact that the world is changing very rapidly in front of us. We live in a very fascinating time as a historian. I can't help but remark on that. Thus, empathy is something that we really have to have when we make these kinds of judgments. It means understanding that our own worldview, our own way of seeing things is actually limited, okay? That there are multiple perspectives to every problem, and ultimately to value that having different perspectives around you in a classroom, in a boardroom, or in a living room is the richest way to live your life. This is actually at the heart of studying world history, right? This is understanding the sort of myriad ways that different people all across the globe have seen their experiences, have seen what's happening. To understand, there's this kind of cliche that history is written by the victor. It's actually very true, right? But to understand what was lost and the stories that aren't told, the stories that are erased, not just the stories that we try so hard to remember, it teaches us actually to be better people. And that's something that's really important to me. Empathy, global and local, also helps you to understand and accept critique. Because if you can't do that, if you can't accept feedback, it will stunt your growth, like coffee. Remember, this is a chestnut that we have passed on. You can go ahead and have coffee. It's time, you're adults, you can do this. Okay, it's this idea of growth from empathy that leads me finally to talk about memory as a value. The Roman orator Cicero believed that memory is the treasury and guardian of all things. And that's a very romantic thought, pun intended. Orator, think about it. Pretty funny. Okay, moving on. Memory is fittingly at the center of history. Historians endeavor to rediscover and recreate the collective memory of a time, place, or event. And I'm not just talking about my own experience, my experience as a scholar, but rather thinking about how we remember experiences, the choices that we make when we write something down, when we tell a story. As students of history, you know that an experience means nothing if it is not remembered and expressed in the proper context. As I look at each of you, as I'm doing now, as I look at each of you, you know within your own memories of this place, these are things that cut deep into you, that define you, your reactions to the world around you as well, and the choices that you make. I really charge you to cherish memory and use it as a guide to choosing your next steps. Your memories will sometime, at some point in the future, turn into your most valuable possessions. As my students know, memory is not a product of the past. It is a product of the present. When we remember something, the memory that we express, that we talk about, is actually shaped by our present-day experience, the knowledge that we've accrued since that original event. What we hold on to, what we don't erase, what we keep to ourselves and share, it tells us more about who we are than who we were. Memory is also less about our individual experiences than we might imagine. Instead, our memories are a fabric, woven threads of our lives that connect us together, even when we're miles, dozens, hundreds, thousands of miles apart, and even as days pass into years and into decades. Memory gives us a shared language that makes community possible, beyond even the confines of a physical space. These three qualities, integrity, empathy, and memory, are essential qualities that link us as individuals to a larger world. But how do we as individuals make our mark in community? How do we shape the world that we inhabit? First, it comes down to taking risks. It means being a little crazy sometimes, holding your breath, closing your eyes, and speaking up, okay? It also really calls me to encourage you to think about the numerous times as you were students at Alcyon that you did this, that you spoke up, that you took a risk. When you wrote poetry, when you formed study groups with new friends in your classes, when you challenged your classmates with an unpopular idea, when you became obsessed with sociology or chemistry or calculus, right? These are times where you went out and took a risk, and it could have led to a glorious, epic mistake, and that's actually good. We learn from the things that we don't do well. Huge mistakes are actually what lead to huge learning and the accumulation of knowledge, okay? And this is what I really want to stress to you, that is what gives you power, is to go out and take risks, to talk to people you don't know, to take classes that seem exciting but maybe seem a little dangerous. Go for it. Don't take risks like jumping off of a bridge. Now, this is not that kind of risk taking. I'm a very risk-averse person in that way. But I mean, reach out to people. We have to remember that in order to build community, we have to abandon the fallacy that we and our abilities, talents, dreams are separate from that community. Our individual worth exists only in how it builds bridges to others. And most often our talents, our passion, our drive comes from crossing bridges built by others to us. In our achievements, we cannot forget how we are informed by our context and how we as individuals work to create that context. This means you have to give a lot of yourselves to others, right? You have to share those talents that you have. To build a community, you have to foster collective investment in a shared vision. You also have to have people engage in dissent and disagree, right? They should not be people that are subjugated to reprisal. These are things that are so important to making us stronger. This is what I mean by embracing critique. It makes us better, okay? I can imagine, and I try to imagine myself and remember the situation where I was when I sat in this position getting ready to head off to college. I was really nervous about what that meant, what that place would be like, where I would be. But it's those anxieties that we have about taking risks, about what the next step will be, that cause us to falter. History rarely records the self-doubt of powerful people. Indeed, we are often taught that the heroes of the past were fearless. This is certainly not true. But the most successful people are not held captive by their fears. That's one of the reasons why teenagers are so amazing. And I know, and I'm speaking really to parents, grandparents, family members, teenagers can be challenging, and I recognize that, but teenagers are so fantastic because the fears that us as adults that we've accumulated over our time, all those experiences, they lack, so they're willing to say things and take risks and explore. It's really amazing, and it's especially amazing when you see it in a classroom. So, these young adults sitting before you are some of the most fearless people I've ever met. I don't want you to lose that. Fear is a demon that doesn't just devour you, it also eats away at the short time that you have here on Earth. That really sounds like something from Game of Thrones. I said no Game of Thrones, I'm really going to keep myself to this. Sorry. I could be ready for Game of Thrones, I realize. Missed the calling. Okay, so finally, I want to remind you that you will encounter people whose motives, whether for personal profit or individual accolades, may corrupt you and what your compatriots want to cultivate. Often these people are interlopers and they may question your identity, your politics, your way of seeing the world. These motives are not those of the community you're part of, the place that you've helped to create. My advice to you for dealing with those people, ignore them. Ultimately, the identity of a place is determined by the actions of its constituents. Really evidencing everything that you've done here in your time at Alcyon and in your experiences at Ohlone College. When people have asked me what makes this place so special, I don't tell them about our new buildings, soon to come. Our excellent history program is really good though. I do talk about that a bit, I will not lie. Or our slick website. I actually talk about people. I have a really good friend who has been my closest and dearest friend since we were in middle school together playing Dungeons and Dragons. I cannot believe I've said that. Good thing Jonathan's not here. It's my friend Jonathan. He's a lawyer. He lives in Phoenix, and he's a really great guy, super smart guy. And we were talking about this recently. We get together every year to celebrate the life of a friend who passed away way too young. And we were talking about this past November, and we were talking about this idea of legacy. We've gotten to this point in our lives where we're old enough to start thinking, what are we leaving behind? Which is a little terrifying. And I came to this realization that all of us sitting here, all of our graduates, our legacy are people. The lives that we've touched, the communities that we've built, the stories that we've told that get passed down and shared. These are the things that we leave behind. Our impact on the world are the people that we've shared it with. You make this community, and the love you have for each other in this place is what makes a community, and that is our legacy. So let's go back to Joan Didion and this idea of place and community. Ultimately, what makes a community, what shapes a place, is love and passion beyond limits. Certainly, the idea of memory that Didion speaks of is a powerful one for a historian like me, but it is memory that cements a community, and certainly our memory that you will continue to shape. Certainly shaping Alcyon as a place, but for you and how you see your lives coming before you, it's this love for the future, this place that you're going to shape as you step away and off to your next steps into college. This is something I really feel I've learned from you. The four of you that are sitting in front of me right now that I'm looking at, to the side, hello. The four of you are a really important part of my experience of getting acclimated to this place and becoming part of this community. You're always going to hold a really special place in my heart. You'll always remember our time together in that course in particular. And the classes and something you took with me after that. It was a really special time for me, and I just feel so honored to be celebrating this moment with you. I just want to share that. I will not make anyone cry, so hold off there. I hold immense respect for you, for what you've accomplished as individuals and the individuals that you've become. I want you to know that I'm going to carry the experiences that we've had with me for the rest of my career. And I really, as I see you and as you face the next set of challenges that you're headed off for, as you shape the next communities that you'll join, I want to say that I have immense respect for you and pride. As you face those challenges, as you move off into the next steps, I hope that you can carry with you the lessons, the experiences, the joy and the love of learning that you've developed here as students at Alcyon. And I hope you make the world a better place. I hope you make change. There's something I always tell my students when I finish a course, and it's a really important idea for me because I think in a history class, some of us have baggage about history, correct? Memorizing places, dates, that feeling, right? This kind of happens a lot when I meet people and I tell them I'm a historian. They feel like I'm going to test them, and I am. Quizzes are coming around. I hope you're ready to do well. But beside that point, there's this important idea, and I feel like this is a really important idea, is that we make our history, right? That history is something that is relational, that is about our experiences, our joy. And I have to say, I'm just really proud of our graduates. I hope they take that excitement, that desire to learn, that desire to know more, off into their next steps. Congratulations, class of 2019.